The perfect example of causality. That is how this chapter struck me. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. We will be taking the spoiler-free, and ooh, that's going to be hard, look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 106. So if you've been watching this channel, you know I'm an author. And when you're writing a book, the technical side of writing is tremendously important. You need to get all your words spelled correctly. You need to make sure your grammar flows smoothly. Not just with technical accuracy, but when you have dialogue, it needs to make sense. It needs to sound like real life people talk. You need to put effort into making sure that the world that you are representing in your fiction is a representation of reality. This is why I put so much effort into researching my science. My alien creatures, I tried to apply the best xenobiology research that I could at the time. I based my aliens life forms on silicon because that is the closest thing we have to carbon, and that is the only molecule that scientists hypothesize could behave in the same way that carbon does in a bond. Now, we've never seen it on Earth, but it's the only one that we think could. I based my FTL drives on actual research and theories that scientists have at the moment. Of course, in 50 years, it'll all be different, but I try to keep the world in my stories as consistent with reality as I can. And Matsumoto does that the same. You've heard me rave about how he pays attention to the laws of thermodynamics, how for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. When Kafka punches up, you can see the resulting force blasting down the ground around him. And we see that in chapter after chapter, the consequences of these kaiju, from the fact that Kafka's very job as a cleanup addresses one of the issues of kaiju stories that is not often addressed. Matsumoto is really great at making sure the world feels real. And one of the things that Matsumoto has displayed in every chapter up to this point brilliantly is causality. What that means is that you hear people criticize works of fiction by saying, this scene felt contrived, this plot point came out of nowhere, there was no hint that this existed in the universe, or this happened because the plot needed it to happen. These are all criticisms which are the opposite of the praise that I want to give Matsumoto. Everything that happens is either logically explained as the result of previously established lore in the world, things that we have seen the characters do, or just real life. Let's look at Kaiju number 9's powers. I've been studying them afresh because of the anime that just came out, and the opening sequence of the anime was the final piece of evidence to need to know exactly what scientific paper Matsumoto got the main idea for Kaiju number 9's powers from. That's Fredrickson et al., and how they confirmed that the fungus that control ant bodies, at least this one species of fungus, extend their tendrils into the ant muscle fibers. But I did a whole video on that. The point is, Matsumoto is dedicated to representing reality as closely as possible. Every work of science fiction, of fantastic fiction, is allowed one great step away from reality. Matsumoto chose the square cube law. Matsumoto said, okay, it's impossible, as far as we know, for there really to be giant kaiju creatures in real life. So I am going to hypothesize that there are, and I'm going to hand wave a reason, the force fields, for it to be possible. But other than that, he sticks so closely to the necessary science. Now, I tend to focus on the scientific aspect, but it can also be focused on the character-driven aspects. These feel like real people you would meet on a day-to-day basis. Their motivations are logical, their relationships are earned, there's chemistry between the people who need chemistry, there's a lack of chemistry when that's necessary. And the choices, the decisions that they make have consequences. And the revelations about their backstory, about their childhoods, have consequences. And I know how does this all tie into this chapter? Because in this chapter, the causality was so strong, so firmly established, that when Doffy Days, shout out to him, great YouTube channel, go check out his videos analyzing Kaiju number 8. When Doffy Days and I were chatting 2 weeks ago after the release of chapter 105, we discussed a complication that was probably going to come up and would be addressed in chapter 106. And Doffy Days just hit it spot on. And how were we able to do this? How were we able to foresee the major driving plot point of this chapter? Because the major driving plot point of this chapter was a logical consequence of the world that Matsumoto had set up, of Vice Captain Hoshina's history and his family history and his training, and because of Kafka's research and his ability and his flexibility, because of the way the Shinamiyas worked their history into it. What happens in this chapter is a natural outgrowth of everything that we have seen before, and it was hype, as Doffy said, and it was amazing, and the bang, bang, and the punch, and the pow. I am a grown woman who is focusing on giving analysis. The combat was awesome, and the fight got your heart pounding. And as we are looking at the pretty art and the crisp line work, and as we are cheering at the classic comic book and manga violence, that is all happening within the framework of a world that could very well be real if it were possible for giant kaiju to grow and form on this planet, which it isn't, for better or for worse. And just a note, as a creator, this is why you should not be worried about fans figuring out the plots. Number one, ahead of time. There's going to be so many theories spinning around out there, nobody's going to know who's right. But if there is that person out there who saw it coming, all it means is that your causality is solid. A well-done plot twist is a beautiful thing, but solid, consistent causality is far more likely to get and keep you a steady audience, because the audience appreciate a world that reflects reality around that one giant leap away. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Did you see this plot twist coming from previous chapters? Do you think it's as logical as I think it? Tell me what you think in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers.
Drake McCarty's leg was shattered, deep in the wilderness. As the flash flood closed over him, something alien pulled him from the waters. A military base that shouldn't exist. An ancient warrior with secrets of his own. Drake returns to his family with a whole leg and the burden of a secret he doesn't understand. In the forest around them, someone is watching, and something followed him home. Flying Sparks. 90,000 words of science fantasy adventure. The first novel in the Dying Embers universe is now available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and from the author as a signed copy. Get your copy now and step into a world where dragons walk the forest, aliens lurk on the mountain, and things go boomp in the night.
Escape into another world with the writings of author Betty Adams. Two worlds, one of utter absurdity, one of dramatic tension, both alike in aliens absolutely astounded by human behavior. Humans are weird, short, absurd science fiction stories. Flying sparks, dragons, aliens, and things that go boom in the night.
Books available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play Books, and at authorBettyAdams.com for a signed copy.